All right, guys. Well, welcome to our mastermind group. I am excited to have you guys here. And obviously, we are a lot of people short. So these groups, you guys, these groups are designed to really go over a lot of the material and give you guys like solid things that you can do moving forward. So by now, you should have listened or read the Law of the Lid. That was chapter 1, and chapter 2 was the law of influence. So just very quickly, I want to go over the law of the lid. I think this is an awesome one. I love this one. When John told me about this one was kind of like a game changer for me because, well, let's talk about what the law of the lid really states. Leadership ability is the lid that determines a person's level of effectiveness. The lower an individual's ability to lead, the lower the lid on his potential. The higher the individual's ability to lead, the higher the lid on his potential. To give you an example, if your leadership rates at an 8, then your effectiveness will no longer be, or will be no greater than a 7. You'll actually, and the truth is too, you guys, you'll actually, you'll never typically, people with like, let's say an 8, they will not be followed by people with a 9 or 10. It's just really hard for somebody who has a higher leadership lid to want to follow somebody with a lower leadership lid, right? But the good news is you can raise your lid. We're going to talk about how to do that, or we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. But that when I understood this concept, when I heard this concept of raising your lid, one, it scared me because I was like, well, my lid's pretty low to start with. But two, I got excited because I realized if I raise it, if I continue to keep going up, then my organization is going to get better. My leadership's going to get better. My effectiveness is going to get better. And Beachbody, you guys, your organization, your leadership is everything. Think about this. If you have a level 3 organization right now, that may be, and understand that there's different level 3s, like somebody's level 3 may be different than somebody else's. Obviously, there's no clear cut, like this is what 8 looks like, this is what 7 looks like, this is what 10 looks like, that sort of thing. But if you have a level 3 leadership, or you're level 3 leadership, you're going to attract 1s and 2s. Now, typically in Beachbody, 1s and 2s are what? They are people who, they're people who are probably just discount coaches or discount customers, right? And they may also be just people who are just along for the ride to just see what happens, okay? They may not be growers, they might not be movers or shakers, but let's say you gave yourself a 3 and you move from a 3 to a 5. John says you can jump at least 3 spots, so maybe a 6 if you really work hard. Think about that though. You're now with an organization with 4s and 5s. Think how much stronger that is. Let's even like for most people, that's really low. I did a low end one. Let's think about like if you were a level 6, that's kind of where people think they come in, about a level 6, 5 to 6. And if you raise that to an 8, think about the quality of people in your organization who will want to follow you. You can lead people, you can lead people, you can lead people and think you're leading people, but if no one's actually following you, you're just out taking a walk, right? So you have to be able to raise your lid consistently as you go through. And I will tell you guys, especially in Beachbody, when you go from a 6 to a 7, that may be like going from Emerald to 2-star, which can be huge. It can be, $4,000 or $5,000 a month in your business. And when you go from like a 6 to an 8 or a 9, I mean, now you're, and again, there's no like, if I'm at a 9, then I'm a 10-star. Like there's no comparison there. But honestly, if you jump that much, I can tell you right now, after raising my lid, and I'm not even close to where my potential is, raising my lid, I've attracted better quality people in my life. I've attracted go-getters. I've attracted people that are wanting to grow this business. And I was just talking to a coach just before we jumped on this call, Tim. We were talking about like confidence, building confidence, and talking to someone with that confidence that, okay, this business can help you. This business can push you. When I first started, guys, I was so nervous to talk to everybody about this for my own, because of my own insecurities or my own, just my own thoughts that were holding me back. Now, as I continue to raise my lid, I talk to corporate CEOs. I just talked to a CEO of a company here in Des Moines about becoming a coach, right? I said, here's what you can do. Here's what you can see that I've done, and I'm going to help take you there. Now, 3, 4, 5 years ago, if I would have talked to this guy with my lid at a 6, he would have never said anything to me. I would have been like, hey, would you check out this video? I would really appreciate it. And he'd be like, nah, Nick, that's okay. You're doing a great job, but I'm not going to look at what you're doing because I don't see your leadership potential. That's why this is number 1. That's why raising your lid is so important in your organization. You're going to attract stronger people. You're gonna ultimately, what you want to do is you want to build a better organization, right? That's what we all want. And so if you have stronger people in each department, each area, you have somebody who's really strong in, especially for Beachbody, really strong in recruiting, okay? Or really strong in free challenge groups, or really strong in regular challenge groups, you're going to start to build your business at a lot faster rate because you're getting better quality people into your organization. So the first question was, and I know it's just me and Tim on here, but the first question was, I'm going to open you up, Tim. Discuss your 3 major goals and what you'll need for assistance. So Tim, and when I record this, I'm not posting this on YouTube. I'm just going to post this to the group. So don't worry about like the world seeing this. But what are your 3 major goals? Have you thought about those?
Yeah, well, right now it's health. Goal is at least lose 100 pounds. Increase my knowledge, sharpen a skill set, and become an effective coach, a leader, and grow the business.
Okay. Let me give you some advice. Those are great aspirations, and they're good goals, but I would encourage you to make them stronger. So what does grow the business mean to you? And you don't have to answer this right now, but like, for instance, if I was going to say, I want to grow the business, where do you want to be weekly with income? Where do you want to, how many people do you want on your team? What does that look like broken down? Because when you're trying to go after major goals, like especially think health and fitness, if it's 100 pounds in a year, and you break it down monthly, then you have to break it down weekly, then you break it down, even to the day to, okay, if I do my workouts every day and, my goal is 2 pounds a week, that's very specific. That's what I have to do. But if you just arbitrarily say, I want to lose 100 pounds, it doesn't give any, there's no strength behind that. You're not really backing that with like tangible, this is what I'm going to do to accomplish it. So I would encourage you to go deeper with those goals. Okay. So one, what was your second one? Read your second one again to me.
Increase my knowledge and skill sets to become an effective coach.
So that would be, to me, that sounds like I'm in the Go Green group and I'm in this John Maxwell training. I'm going to read 2 chapters a week. I'm going to work on personal development each and every day. Like that's how you break down that goal, because that's kind of again, it's one of those where it's not, goals need to have a start and end point. They should be measurable. So you have to have some way to measure. You can't really measure the last 2 that you had said. But if you say like, I want to read 12 personal development books by the end of the year, not only will that help you do exactly what you just said right there for number 2, but that's very tangible. All right, I'm going to read 12 personal development books. That means I got to read 1 book a month, and here are my 12 books. You know what I mean? So it actually gives you a plan of this is how I'm going to go do that. A lot of people don't, and that's called reverse engineering your goals. So if your goal is I want to be effective and good coach, well, what does that look like? Is that Success Club 5? Well, if that's Success Club 5 every month, then that means you have to be doing your power hour every day. So doing your power hour 5 times a week, you get to cross that off and you said, okay, this week I did my power hour 5 times a week. And does that mean that you're going to hit, like if you say, I want to go Emerald by next month and you don't hit it, that you failed? No. As long as you do the things that you need to do to be successful, to work towards that goal, you're going to get there. I made a goal of Diamond Coach by September of, I think it was 2012. I think I hit it in November. So I didn't hit it, but I did the activities that it took to get there. I did my power hour every day that I said I was going to. I showed up and I did my power hour. But I didn't just say, I want to hit diamond and then see what happens. Like, you have to set a date, time, and it has to be measurable. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Nice. And I know a lot of you other guys have some great, some of you guys send some of your other stuff in. Tiffany, I saw Tiffany's. And, I'll give you guys the opportunity to kind of share your major goals. So you should have read Ray Kroc's story. I thought that was really powerful, especially the way the two guys, Dick and Maurice, they formed kind of a McDonald's system in which they sold hamburgers, right? But the cool thing about the law of the lid was they were capped. They were making decent money, don't get me wrong, but they were nowhere near where they needed to be. And so when they partnered with Ray Kroc, he's the one that took them, because they were capped with leadership. He's the one that took them from like just okay, doing well. A lot of people's standards, they were doing better than well. They were doing great, to extraordinary mogul giant that McDonald's is today, because he raised their lid. He took them to that next level, right? So the question is, and he even, he increased their customer service, their organization. He made their leadership more effective. So we want to kind of talk about 3 to 5 strengths that you possess that you can assist in your goals. Tim, did you do the, where was it? I don't have the other stuff in front of me, but there should have been like a rate yourself from 1 to 10 thing, right?
Yes.
Did you do that? Did you find what you'd consider like your strengths?
You're talking, this is your number, right? Yeah. Is that what you're referring to?
Yep.
Yeah. Yes, I did that.
Okay. What were your strengths?
Generosity.
Okay.
Positive attitude.
Okay.
Problem solving.
Perfect.
Responsibility.
Awesome.
Teachability, commitment, community. Yeah.
And so what John would say is, when you know your strengths, people will pay for strengths. People do not pay for weaknesses, right? You think about, I'm trying to think of a great example. Let's say a great relief pitcher, right? A great relief pitcher, their strength is not starting a game. If they start a game, they may be average, right? Because maybe they don't have the stamina, the velocity to maintain a fastball, but they're really good. Like, think of Mariano Rivera. His strength was coming in and closing out games. How much did they pay him for that strength? Ridiculous money. Now, if he tried to work on his weaknesses, which would be like, and I know I'm using a baseball and sports analogy, but if he tried to work on stamina and all that, and he really focused on the weaknesses, he probably would get somewhat better in those weaknesses, but those strengths, they pretty much stay the same. Now, let's say he really focused on his strengths, which is his fastball, which is getting people out, which is striking people out in 1 to 2 innings, right? He really honed in on those. They paid big bucks. So what I'm saying is, well, yes, we need to recognize our strengths or our weaknesses. We really want to raise our strengths, right? If you give yourself a 7 in generosity, and you take the next 2 months to really focus in on generosity, I'm talking like in your Beachbody business, maybe that means you give a program away, or you start like a couple of clean eating groups, and you just give and give and give and give. Guess what's going to happen? You're going to see that come back tenfold. People are going to pay you for that. I guarantee you. So one thing that I recommend is called Strengths Finder 2.0, or by Tom, I believe it's Tom Rath. And in there, you can actually figure out what your strengths are as well. That really pinpoints it down. But this is kind of a generic version, so you can kind of see, I'm going to grade myself, and I kind of give myself a number, and then you have your overall grade, right? So that's why we want to raise our lid on those major strengths that we're really trying to accomplish. I truly believe that, you guys. Like, if you're a really good communicator, like John is, and you continue to get really good at communication, you're going to be speaking, engaging, public speaking, running seminars and on webinars and all that sort of thing. And people are going to pay you for that. But like, let's say John stopped working on that. He didn't develop that as much as he could. He didn't take that from a 7 to a 10, and he worked on a weakness, which is, I don't know, maybe organization, right? And he took organization from a 4 to a 6. Well, people aren't going to pay as well for a 6 as they are for a 10, right? It's the same in your business. People aren't going to follow as well as for a 6 as they are for a 10. Does that make sense? So that's why it's important that you know your strengths. You know where you're coming from, okay? If you're filling in the blanks, the first one is, so we will learn the law as an overview. We will discuss living the law. I'm going to actually just give you guys the key. I think I'm going to do that. That makes it easier. Give you guys the key as you go forward. And then the next one is, so the first one is the law of the lid. I love the graph below there, because take a look at the graph. Success without leadership is not very effective, right? I mean, you're looking at a 8 on that scale. Your leadership ability is a 1. You're very limited on what you can produce, who you can duplicate within your organization. When you increase your leadership, you increase your effectiveness, and specifically in this graph, by 600%. So, I mean, think about that. That's gonna do big for your business. Okay. So the other thing is we kind of talked about we want to know what our weaknesses is and what would hinder or prevent your success. So, Tim, I'm actually going to ask you that. I'm going to unmute you. What do you think right now is hindering your success?
Go back here to my list.
I don't know if it's necessarily on there, but I mean, like, just in general, what do you think? Is it, and if we're talking Beachbody, I mean, do you think it's confidence? Do you think it's knowledge? It's a knowledge gap thing? Do you think what do you think is really holding you back from moving forward in your business or even in life, I guess?
Actually, overall would be security, or not security, but shoot, I had the word there.
Like, would you say there is a lack of know-how, like knowing how, or maybe even
confidence? I'm sorry. Yeah, I had it right there. I apologize. Yeah, just being confident in a lot of things I do. Work and in this.
So feeling like people can look to you, so you know what you're doing.
Correct.
Yeah. And that, when you start a new endeavor in coaching or anything, you guys, you're gonna have bumps and bruises, right? I mean, that's just the way it is. That's where being diligent in learning every single day is so important. That's why especially in Beachbody, doing your 5 vital behaviors or your 4 vital behaviors every day is so important, because you're gonna get good. I remember when I was a brand new coach and I would show up to Tracy's webinars every single time, and I would learn every single time. I would learn her language, her voice fluctuations, like everything. I learned that. I learned what challenge packs were. I learned what things were. I showed up to everything. Super Saturdays, summits, all those sort of things. So I was competent, like Tim said, in my knowledge and what Beachbody was. Now, if I didn't have the answer, here's what I would say. Look, I don't know the answer. I'm actually going to go to someone who does, and I'm going to get that answer right to you. That's what I would say. People respect that so much when you say, look, I don't have the answer, but I know somebody who does. Give me 2 days, and I will get that answer for you. And then go to your upline, go to another coach, go to somebody, and find out what that answer is. Then people realize, look, he may not have all the answers, but he's the go-to person. Like, I want to go to him for those answers and for what I'm looking for. So that's great, Tim. Nice. I appreciate that. The other thing is, what are sacrifices that you need to make to raise your lid? I know for me, one of the sacrifices I needed to do was I needed to pay for an event. I needed to put some cash down for an event to go learn from John Maxwell, right? I needed to put money down to go learn from the best. That was a sacrifice. And what did that also take? It took taking 4 days out of my boot camp to go do that. So time was a sacrifice. So ask yourself, what sacrifices are you going to have to take to raise your lid? I remember John talking about the very first time he ever did personal development by a gentleman who offered him a personal development kit. I believe, and I hope I get this number right, but I believe the kit was somewhere in the ballpark of like 4 to 5 months of income for him and his wife. And so he saved up 4 to 5 months, maybe a little bit more, for that kit in order to dive into that kit. And he said, look, I didn't make a ton of money right away because I did the kit, but I will 100% say with confidence it is because I invested in that kit and I invested in myself that I started the path of learning how to be a better leader, that I am the person I am today and I'm making more money than I know what to do with. Or I'm helping more people than I know what to do with. I'm more passionate about what I'm doing than I could ever imagined. Whatever it is. It doesn't have to necessarily be money, but whatever it is. So you have to be able to give something up in order to raise your lid. What is it? Is it going to be money? Is it going to be time? Is it going to be excuses? Is it going to be your Saturday night TV? Guys, we got rid of cable. That was one thing that I got rid of. I don't, we watch Netflix and stuff like that, but if I'm not watching maybe a show and I have like a couple shows, I'm doing work, right? I have to stop myself sometimes. What do you have to give up? So I want you to take a minute and I know Tim's here. Write that down. Write down what you feel like you need to give up. So if you're looking at Beachbody, maybe it's you need to give up Friday night drinking night, right? For me, that was one of them. Like if I wanted to have success with P90X, I needed to give up drinking with the buddies. That was a non-negotiable to raise my lid. I needed to give that up. If you want to be more successful, make more sales calls, maybe you have to give up. I remember the movie, and I don't know, necessarily how accurate it was, but it's a good example. Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith, where he literally gave up like bathroom breaks and hanging up the phone. I mean, he literally would just like tap the phone and dial again. Like he didn't actually put the receiver down. He just kept going, right? He gave that up so he could make more sales calls. I mean, that's a little extreme example, but it's an example. Like what are you needing to give up right now to have success? Do you have to give up maybe, and here's the deal, you guys, do you want success or don't you? So that's the question you have to ask. If you say yes, then what are the sacrifices that you need to do right now to raise that lid, to increase it? Is it, I need to download Audible and I need to learn to listen to audiobooks on the road? Whatever it is for you. What is stopping you from achieving your next goal? That's another question that I think you need to ask yourself. What's stopping you? For me, it wasn't necessarily a knowledge thing. It was an assumption thing. I just assumed. For Beachbody, I just assumed that people didn't want to spend $140. I just assumed that people were going to say no. I just assumed that people were going to think I'm a salesperson. Like I just assumed. And when I got rid of that assumption that, people can't afford it, or it's too expensive, or people aren't going to want to join my team, or, those sort of things. When I broke that barrier down, my business started to boom because I realized everybody needs what we have. Whether it's the coaching opportunity or whether it's business, whatever. Everybody needs personal development. Everybody needs what you have in this, right? So when I thought of that, I was able to break it down and get rid of it. So that's a huge question you have to ask. What's stopping you from achieving your goal? All right. Let's see. The higher you want to climb, the more you need leadership, right? the greater the impact you want to make, the greater your influence needs to be. Whatever you will accomplish is restricted by your ability to lead others. Working hard at raising the lid of leadership will increase your effectiveness. Study charts 6 and 7. So if you're looking at your thing right now, so you see those charts that we just talked about. I believe those were the charts, right? 6 and 7. Those were the ones that we were just talking about. Okay. This is awesome, you guys. This is great. We're really getting into a lot of good stuff. And I know it's kind of just me and Tim right now. And this is why we need you guys on the calls so we can kind of keep going back and forth with this. If a person's leadership is strong, the organization's lid is going to be high. But if it's not, then the organization is limited. Think about that. If your top leader is only a 6, that's as high as your organization can go. It's better to have a level 10 dream it's better to have a level 10 team and a level 5 dream than it is to have a level 5 team and a level 10 dream, right? Because if you have a level 5 team, but you have this big dream, it's going to be very hard to go climb that ladder to get there, all right? So you need to continually be working on yourself and raising that every single day. Are you willing to take the steps? Are you willing to take the steps? You can typically climb about 3 spots, John says. And 3's a lot. 3's like the high end. Okay? So let's go through, Tim, I just want to ask you one quick question. Unmute you. It says, describe a time in your life when you were stuck and somebody or something challenged you to look at a situation differently. Do you have something in there that has worked for you or you've noticed that?
Well, pertaining to work, about 10 years ago, I'm a plastics process engineer. So 10 years ago, there was a gentleman that said, hey, this is how I mold. This is how I do things. And I was kind of set in my ways anyway, but learning, his techniques and just him being a mentor to me, that made me, look at things different. And definitely be successful in that part of my job.
Mm-hmm.
So
nice, yeah. And I can think of multiple. And here's the cool thing, you guys, especially staying on this law of the lid. It almost seems like when I made the decision to become a coach, my lid was like instantly raised because I was working with one of the best people. And then I said, I want to surround myself with guys like Tony Horton, with guys like John Maxwell. Those are my mentors. Those are the ones I want to look up to. So they challenged me to look at situations in a different light, especially in communication with people. I can remember just recently I had an opportunity that I thought was going to be phenomenal. I thought, I have a very short fuse sometimes. You guys wouldn't know that. Maybe you do. But I used to do, and I was in an internship before I was ever in Beachbody. And I remember I was doing music for this baseball team. And I did a great job. I was always told I did a great job. And one day my boss just comes in at random and just starts, he's like, Nick, you're out, I'm in. And instead of asking questions, instead of being logical about the situation, I stormed out of there, threw a fit, said, why are you doing this? I'm good. How come you're telling me I'm so bad? Like I was a baby, pretty much. So what I learned through personal development, what I learned through growing myself is in this last situation that I just had, I had a gentleman where it was a sticky situation. And I said, all right, here's the deal. Let's communicate this. Tell me what's going on. Let me tell you how I feel. Let me tell you what my side of the story is. And let's see if we can communicate that. It didn't actually turn out to be a very good story or situation, but it's at least I handled it differently than I would have. I didn't come in guns a-blazing, yelling and screaming. I had a little bit cooler head. I was very calm and cool. I laid out my reasoning for what I was, doing. And even though they didn't accept that reasoning, it was a lot better situation. So that's what happens when you raise your lid, right? Now, here's the difference. Here's why that's so important. Because before, if I would have done that and this business owner now would have said, Nick came in yelling and screaming and, you know, just so disrespectful. Think how that would look and reflect on me as a business owner. Instead, all he can say is, look, okay, he may have came in, like, I don't like his decision, but he was respectful for that. And when he goes and tells other people, look, he was, you know, he made it, like, I don't get his decision. I'm not, you know, I don't like it, but he was respectful to me with that decision. That keeps my integrity, my persona, and who I am as a brand, that keeps that intact. Whereas before, I would have completely lost that. So that's why raising your lid is so important, you guys. All right. Well, that took us quite a long time. I want to go through just very quickly the next one, the law of influence. And, you know, like I said, we want to give about 45 minutes to these calls, 45 to an hour. And if we get good discussion going, then I want to just keep this rolling. So the law of influence basically says the true measure of leadership is influence. Nothing more, nothing less. When a leader speaks, people listen. Remember, if you think you're leading and no one is following, you're just out taking a walk. I think of the military or, you know, those sort of things when I think of this. You know, somebody who may have a higher rank doesn't necessarily mean they're leading per se. It just means their influence or their rank is over that of someone else. True influence, if you guys remember John's story about the guy that came to church and he had to influence that one gentleman who was like the main man. He was like the main guy that everybody went to. That's true influence. Even though he didn't hold a title and even though he didn't really hold a position, he had to influence that person in order to get the job done, right? So in this, there's a lot of myths. There's the manager myth. There's the entrepreneur myth. You're an influencer because you're in management. I remember a lot of managers that didn't influence me. You know, they didn't. That's just the way that is. Entrepreneur, just because you own your own business doesn't mean you're an influencer. I will go back to the guy I just talked to. He owned his own business. He actually was named Businessman of the Week, but he didn't influence me. He wasn't a leader. His people did not view him as a leader. They just viewed him as the person signing the paychecks, right? And your organization is only going to go so far if you're the person signing the paychecks. Guys, I can't tell you how much influence is going to impact your business. I know coaches that are 4 or 5 star diamonds that know just as much as diamond coaches, but the reason why they're so much further ahead is because they have more influence. Plain and simple, okay? The knowledge myth, just because, I think, Tim, you addressed this. Just because you have more knowledge means you're a leader. No. I know I know people on our team that have been in this from the start, that have never signed up a coach, that know everything about the compensation plan, but have never really moved their business forward. That's not a leader, right? That's not somebody, just because they have all the information doesn't make them a leader, right? Are you following their lead because of their intelligence and guidance, or are you following their lead for some other reason? All right, and in this, we would discuss the differences, but we're going to kind of keep rolling on this. All right, the pioneer myth, the person who came first is the leader. I love the expedition. Did you read that, Tim? Did you read that part, the expedition one?
Yes, I got the Audible. That's the story I really enjoyed.
Yeah, right.
It reminded me of one of our plant managers that we had, and probably the only leader that I've ever worked with in my life.
Yeah, I love that story because, I mean, think about it. Like, one guy goes and does his own thing and leads people, and they all die. Another guy does it the right way, leads people to glory, right? I mean, it's absolutely phenomenal that you can have 2 different types of people and they do it different ways. I just loved how he talked about, the South Pole, how Hillary traveled to the South Pole and he was accompanied by another leader, and one guy made it and one guy didn't. So yeah, I love that story. First man to reach. Oh, this one was about, I'm sorry, guys. This one was about Summit. Well, yeah, it's the same thing. Pretty much the same thing.
It's like the one guy envisioned everything from start to finish.
Yes. Yep. That's right. Yep. Yeah. Yep. And he was it in this chapter, because I'm quite a bit ahead, but was it in this chapter where he talked about how he did like the Eskimos, he learned from the Eskimos, he learned like down to, clothing and everything, and that's,
yes.
Yeah, okay, we're on the same. Yeah.
He had purchased all this special clothing, sunglasses, boots.
Yep. And the other guy didn't have enough food. He just kind of winged it.
Yeah. And the other gentleman actually plotted food bins, here and there. So
yeah, and that's influence, you guys. That's what that's all about. The position and that. So that's the pioneer myth. The position myth, like I'm a CEO, so I know everything. I love how he talks about the CEO of Costco, and that's a leader. Like, that is somebody who is truly invested in their people, understands the culture, understands what their brand stands for, low cost, delivering lots of quantity. That's somebody who gets it. And that person, yes, he's a CEO, but he's a leader. Now, I've known CEOs of organizations that, they just sit up on their high horse and they're not leading a single person. They're not leading the janitor. The janitor hates them, I just watched, there's a show on Netflix, Limitless, and the guy came in, he wanted some information from the CEO. The CEO wouldn't give it to him. So he went out to the kind of the mailroom area, and he said, look, if you hate the CEO, email me this document. And everybody emailed him the document because they didn't like the CEO, right? So that CEO was not a leader. He was not somebody who people respected and trusted and wanted to follow, right? So that's a myth. You're not, just because you're in a position of power does not mean you're a leader, okay? There are 7 factors of leadership. There's character, relationships, knowledge, intuition, experience, past success, and ability, all right? It asks us to discuss all 7 of these, but I'm not really going to discuss them all. I'll tell you my favorites. Character. I really think people can sense truth and integrity. Who you are as a person. People really grasp onto that. Yes, you need to be knowledgeable. I think obviously you need to know the facts. You need to know, especially if you're running a business, you need to know the ins and outs. You need to know what works, what doesn't. But I think building relationships and character are just 2 of the biggest ones. Experience, yes. I think you can be a leader. You need to be a leader with it. But I think you can be a leader without it. I think you can gain experience with your people, right? Past successes, that's another one. What's your track record? You have to have some success too, because people are going to follow people who have success. And that is a key. That is a key thing. Ability, are you good? Are you good at what you do? All right? Remember, people won't go along with you if you don't get along with people. That is huge, you guys. So that is huge. They asked us to talk about how can I intentionally add value to people. This is one of my favorite ones. So you're talking about let's finish with this and we'll end this call. How do I become a better leader? How do I raise my influence? Let me tell you this right now. You intentionally add value to people. What do I mean by that? Well, think about this. When you add value to someone, when something as simple as a standard text message. I do this a lot to my coaches. I'll send them a text message. Hey, man, appreciate you. Hopefully you're doing great. That's adding value. It can be something like with my John Maxwell certification. I mean, the tremendous, paying a lot of money for the certification and the value they give, the coaching, the information. I mean, it's just overwhelming what they pour into it. You're running a challenge group. What's the bare minimum you would do with a challenge group? Well, here's your challenge pack, and I'm going to check in every now and then. Go get them, Tiger. Like, that's not it. How do you add value? Hey, here's a challenge group. I'm going to give away prizes. Happy. right? We use happy in our challenge groups. Those are value-added things that make it so much better, and the reason why people engage and the reason why people trust, okay? And let me just say this as a quick note. People don't expect leaders to be perfect, okay, you guys? People don't expect you to be perfect. They do expect you to be continually setting the trail, working on yourself, having successes, then failing, learning from that, and keep going. But people do not expect you to be perfect. In fact, I would say this. You're going to have more influence if you relate to people more, right? It's that number 2 on the 7 factors of leadership, relationships. Surround yourself with the right people, but also grow those relationships into what people will trust. And when do people trust you? When they see you in vulnerable situations or in vulnerable positions. When you say, look, I don't have it all together. I struggled in this area of my life, but here's what I'm doing to fix it, right? Those are great posts on social media, by the way. I've struggled with my weight loss, but now I'm really challenging myself to get better, and I've lost 15 pounds in the last 20 days or whatever it is. You know, people see that. They see that you're continuing to increase your what is what I'm looking for? You're just getting better every single time, right? But they don't want you to be perfect. Like, people don't want to follow a perfect leader. When you fall off the wagon, admit it. Admit it. I fell off. Now I'm back on, and I'm moving forward, right? People want to see that. They want to see that people are human. So that would be the best advice on those 2 laws. So we talked about a lot of stuff, you guys, a lot of stuff today. I really can't wait till we get a lot of you guys in this so we can really discuss this. This is going to be fun to really discuss and go into. Next week, we're going to go into the law process. This is one of my favorite ones. Just a question to kind of think about. What is your plan for personal growth? What is your plan for personal growth? When I was asked that question, I had no idea. So I paid for a certification, or I paid for a training to go and learn from the top personal growth expert, in my opinion, in the world, John Maxwell. What's your plan? This program, this mastermind, that is your plan. That is your plan for personal growth, right? So I don't want this. I'm going to go ahead and I appreciate you guys so much. One thing I don't want this to do, I don't want this to be all about me talking. So I know, Tim, I appreciate you for being on. Thank you for communicating with me and sharing your insights and that sort of thing. And I hope next time, you guys, we have more of you guys, because I do not want this to just be me talking. I can record myself and look at myself in the mirror talking. I don't want that. I want you guys engaged. I want this group to be fun and meaningful as we go forward. So we spent an hour here today, actually 45 minutes. Tim and I jumped over a little bit, but I appreciate it, you guys. I'm going to stop the recording now. Go out there, crush it. Let's get chapters 3 and 4 done for next week.